Hey guys, and welcome to the Lower Chesapeake Bay Fishing Report, the first podcast to bring you the local offshore, nearshore, and inshore fishing report, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. We got a great fishing report lined up for you guys this week, but first let's hear who's making the show possible. Tired of battling salt corrosion on your boat, trailer, and reels? Meet Salt's Gone, your ultimate solution. This powerful, instantly acting chelating agent tackles salt and brine with ease, featuring corrosion inhibitors to protect against future damage and surfactants for a thorough clean. Salt's Gone is pH neutral, making it safe for all boat materials, metals, glass, paint, vinyl wraps, and more. Highly concentrated, just 1 gallon creates 100 gallons of ready-to-use solution. Apply it with or without running water. It's perfect for any situation. Use code GT10 to save 10% at saltsgone.com. Or if you need faster delivery, use Amazon or your favorite retailer. Listen up, folks. AFTCO has a new promotion for all Great Days Outdoors Podcast Network listeners. They're now offering a camo sunglasses cleaner cloth with any purchase of AFTCO products. I especially enjoy their hooded sun protection shirts, as well as their Seiko fluorocarbon. All you got to do to get your coupon code is text LCBFR to 779-345-2918. Again, just text the letters LCBFR to 779-345-2918 to get subscribed to our email list, and we'll send you the promo code via email. All right, guys, welcome to this week's show. We're going to kick it off with some excitement that's been happening out in the deep blue water. I want to welcome back to the show a friend of the show, Captain Russ Castinas with Top Notch Sport Fishing. How are we doing, Cap?
Very good, very good. Good morning.
Good morning to you too, man. I am so excited to dive in because, man, I remember talking the last time, and you said, hey, getting into September, October is when we expect to see some blue water activity, start to fire up. And sure enough, your prediction was pretty spot on. And I just want to hear about all the things because I see some billfish, I see some mahi, even some bonus tuna. What have you guys been doing? What's been happening out there?
Well, it's great. Really is good fishing this time of year. I usually tell people that this is the best time of year to fish. The only problem is the weather gets you. So I usually tell people you only got a 50-50 chance on getting out.
Mm-hmm.
And last week we had 4 trips and 5 days. And fortunately, one guy could move his trip back to it. And so we ended up doing 3 trips and I guess 6 days. We did not get our 4th trip in. The weather was just too bad on one of the days, but to go, which is a shame. But no, this time of year, what you can do, and if you don't subscribe to a service, there's a lot of temperature services out there, but there's a free one too.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we talked about it before, but you go to Rutgers Sea Temp. So you Google Rutgers Sea Temp, and it's going to give you a sea temp chart. And where you really love to go is when you see a temperature change of a couple degrees, because that usually means you're going to have good fishing, and it usually means that there's a weed line or something there. And since I mentioned something about weed lines, the only thing that's interesting this time of year, because we've had so many storms, is that there's lots of weed lines out there. So one day we went out there and we were only in 29 fathoms. It was a nice weed line, pretty well made up. And so I started fishing down the weed line. And when we do that, sometimes you can put out your regular spread until you get a dolphin bite.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get a dolphin bite, I think I shared with folks before, what we usually do is we call it what we call break down, which is I pull my big poles in and I put some smaller poles in with a small J hook. And then we already have bait. The mate has already prepared that the night before or the day morning of. Sometimes we cut up little pieces of squid, or you have, like we've been able to get some albacore. So we cut those into little strips. And I mean strips about 3 inches long by about 1 inch thick.
Okay.
And then you put them down. And I'm a twin engine boat. So I put one engine in gear. So I'm going about 3 knots down the weed line once I get hit by a dolphin. That way, that smaller hook and that bait, you put 4 poles out and all 4 will go off. And your odds of hooking them and catching them are a lot better. And we'll bring one at a time. And then I circle in that area, or I keep going down the weed line and then circle back when I stop getting bites. And so you can catch a lot more dolphin quicker.
Got it.
But going back to the start of that, I usually put my regular spread out, maybe a pole or 2 less, going down that weed line, because the problem this time of year is that there's lots of weed lines. And so I found one right away that we had weeds. And so we caught our dolphin. I called actually another boat in to see if he wanted to catch some, and he did. I knew he had a bunch of guys on their 18th birthday, so he came in there and caught a bunch of dolphin too. A lot of fun. And then we picked up and we ran further out, and then we started fishing after we caught our limited dolphin. But in another trip, we did that, and we did not get any dolphin on that weed line. It was a different weed line, different day. That's the other thing, guys, if you're fishing, is the current's always moving. So if you find the weed line on the 200 line, and then the next day you go out there again, it may be at a 200 line. It may not be. It may move. Let's see, it moves in not an hour. Well, you're going there 18 hours later. That's 18 miles it's moved.
Wow.
So, it really moves. So there's lots of weed lines. And so right now you need to find one that's holding dolphin. So if you're going down that weed line and it looks like it's brown, it's not, doesn't look like you see a lot of bait fish. We're always looking at that weed line. And if you see lots of little bait fish or little trigger fish, stuff like that, some jacks, then you know that what we call that is a live weed line. That's great, because if it's got bait in it, eventually fish are going to find that. But if you go through one and it doesn't look like you see anything and it looks kind of dead, then I wouldn't give it very long. The other day we gave it about 10 minutes, and I picked up and then I ran further out. And you might go 10, 15 miles and find another weed line. If you don't find one, you start trolling, and then when you're fishing, you find a weed line, then you go to that weed line, start all over. So it's been a lot of work, but a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I see some big dock shots, and I want to go back to something you said, and sorry to interrupt. You've talked about the 200 line before, and a lot of folks, may not be familiar with that. So just a quick kind of excerpt on when you talk about the 200, the 300 line, remind folks that are listening, when you look at a map or you think about where you're going and you're looking at that, sea surface temperature, like you talked about, I use Hilton's real-time navigator, and I'll go find that. I'll look at the chlorophyll shot, but, put that into context for the 200 line. What are we talking about there?
Sure. For us old-time fishermen, we fished when there was I fished even before there was a Loran C, so to speak. They had the Loran A first, but then you got a Loran C. And what they did is they had towers on the shoreline, and they will put out a line, and then for navigation they'd cross those lines. And so these stations would put out these lines, and so you'd have a Loran C. And so the 200 line, you'd cross that. Let's say it would cross it like the 825, and so you know exactly where you are. So what's happened now is that all machines have GPSs. They do lat long. So if, let's say you're not familiar with it, and your machine says 36 point something. Well, usually go into settings, and you can change that, and it changes it to, you want to go to what is called TDs. TDs. So, and then you can push that button. Like my machine, I have a Ray Marine, and I go right to it when I want to put in a number. Let's say somebody gave me a number, and I can put it in with lat long, or I can put it in with TDs. Now, since you mentioned it, the good thing about TDs, or the bad thing, is lat long is a lot more accurate. And so these machines are mechanically converting it to TDs. So if you said, Russ, I want to go to a wreck, for instance. It doesn't matter when you're trolling, but let's say you're going to a wreck, and somebody gives it to you in TDs, and then you put it in your machine in TDs, and then you go to it and you can't find the wreck. Well, his machine and your machine, they're mechanically changing that. So it's not like you said or you held it on your boat. So if you do that and you drive around and then you find the wreck, push the save button on your GPS, and then you rename that wreck and with your GPS. In other words, your GPS is accurate to your GPS, but your GPS may not be accurate to my GPS.
That's such a steep learning curve.
I know. I learned that. Yeah, this year, a guy had some great tile fishing. He said, and we go way back. So he said, you usually don't switch too many. You got to be a really good friend to get somebody's tile numbers because you can deplete the tiles. So he gave me his tile numbers, and so I went there and I'm like, well, this doesn't look right. And I'm looking around with my machine. Well, my machine and his machine were not close, not even close. Well, close. within a quarter mile, half mile. But if you're trying to find bottom structure, or a wreck,
Mm-hmm.
quarter mile, and they may be more accurate. I'm not an expert on that, so I couldn't tell you what they get it within.
Mm-hmm.
But I can just tell you that his numbers and my numbers, he was supposed to be in 50 fathoms, and when I got to his number on my machine, I was in 72 fathoms. And so, but those things can gradually go down. I might not have been that far away, but 50 fathoms and 72 fathoms.
Very, very different depths there. And going back to Loran C, I had to Google it because I was just curious. So it was actually some low frequency radio is kind of the basis of Loran C.
Yes.
And it's said to be accurate within about 200 to 300 feet. So kind of the same concept where it's like you might get that line, that 200 line or whatever, and you still have to kind of look around on your bottom machine to actually get located on whatever that
is
target.
Correct. You in the old days you did. It's not like nowadays. I think like my machine saves it. Then when I go back with my machine, it gets me right on it. Because it's using that it's transforming the numbers. But
Mm-hmm.
you are right. In the old days, unless it's a big wreck, you'd get to the wreck, turn your bottom machine on, and go where you want to find it, and there you go. Now they got navionics, which will show you which how the ship is positioned, and
right.
My bottom machine has like what do they call it? Down views, side view. I mean, you're seeing the ship and how it's turned, and
Right.
I mean, they got some really accurate stuff now.
Yeah.
But anyway, the reason we still do with TDs is that if you told me, Russ, I'm catching some fish, and I'm at 74 dash, and you went through that number, I wouldn't know where in the world you are.
Mm.
But because I'm doing it so long, I know the 200 line is actually on the northeast corner of the cigar. Now you may be way deep, so I'd say somebody said, hey, I'm at the 200 line. I'd say, how deep? And they'd say, I'm at 50 fathoms. Well, then I know in my mind where I'm at. I'm at let's say I'm at the 150. Well, now I know I'm 50 microseconds behind them. It changes a little bit, but a rough estimate is about 8 miles per 100.
Okay.
So if I'm at the 100 line and he's at the 200 line, I know I'm about 8 miles.
Wow.
That changes because those lines go a little bit different. But so then I know, hey, that's going to take me a little over an hour to troll there.
Right.
So those kinds of things are and the reason I mention that is that if you see somebody that has a weed line and they give you the numbers, you can kind of figure where you are at, and then you can ask them, are you going north? Is the weed line going north-south, or is it going east-west? And so usually a line is a line for a while. Okay. So you don't have to get right to where I'm actually at. You might be able to hit that line in a different spot.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like you said, it's a lot of work out there. It's not like, you can just go out there and start fishing around, but hey, fishing's fishing. You may find them, and I may want to come find you.
Right.
Because you found them. I tell people all the time, fish have tails, not addresses. So
right.
they are not, just because they're there now does not mean they're going to be there in 3 hours.
Yeah.
They're moving. And especially if they were there yesterday, they might not be there today. It might be a good point to start.
Right.
But you're gonna have to find them.
Yeah, and you mentioned the fish, they have tails but not addresses, and we were talking with we're going to have it in an upcoming episode, our special segment with Casey Davidson from Toadfish, who's one of our new sponsors, and we were just talking about their goals for sustainability and replanting oysters, and I mentioned to him, I was like, one of our contributors, he makes a great point that no one's out there restocking the fads with fresh mahi overnight like they do at the grocery store, and so same thing, it's like you're not just out there, blind luck. It can happen, but there's so much more going on inside the mind of an experienced captain to get located and get on fish, and just hearing you talk through the complexities that go into understanding how to get located, it's truly remarkable. And obviously that's something that comes with a great deal of time and experience on the water. But I want to dive into another topic because I'm looking at your Facebook right now and I see a lot of long, pointy things coming out of the water. You guys have had a ton of billfish activity. Talk me through some of those catches.
Oh yeah, that's great. And I think I shared with folks before, but how we do it if you hear people say that they're dink bait fishing, what that means is that, and for billfish, we're trying not to kill these billfish, and so we use a circle hook. And you can go online and you can Google how you rig that. But basically, you're rigging that circle hook, and the ballyhoo is rigged separately with wire and a little tiny O-ring coming out his nose. And then a little rubber nose goes over, goes over the circle hook. And so therefore, when a fish comes up there, I'm using light tackle. I'm using, I think, Penn squalls because they have a high ratio, 7-to-1. So when I'm turning that handle one time, the spool turns 7, and we're using about 5.5, 6 pounds of drag, 30-pound line, 80-pound leader, and I'm using fluorocarbon 60-pound for the hook. So I've got like a 6-foot leader. So I've got a crank-on leader that's 80-pound. It's clear. My line is, I think, green. Or now it's terrible. I don't remember whether it's green. I know they make orange and other colors too, but that's just so you can see it a little bit better in the water for us. But you don't want the fish to see it. Anyway, then the last 6 feet we use fluorocarbon circle hooks. So I'm using 5 baits with 30-pound, and I've got a blue marlin bait, which I put on 50 wide loaded with 80-pound line, and I'm using a big chugger in front of that. Okay. Now during the tournament time, I have to use a circle hook. Without that, I'm putting a J hook in there because a lot of times a blue marlin will just pounce right on it. And if a tuna hits it or something like that, it'll come tight more with a J hook and stuff too. So and it runs better with that plug that I use there with a J hook. So that one I am using a J hook. But anyway, so and then we're still trying to find those temperature changes, even the weed lines. But I will fish off the weed lines a little bit, maybe 100 feet, because I don't want to get jumped. Those baits take a long time to re-rig. And as my mate will tell me, I get hit by a 6 dolphin. Dolphin like to hit from behind. So therefore, they're going to get you. And unless you feed them a long time, you're not going to get that dolphin because the hook is in the front of the fish.
So you're going to lose a bunch
therefore,
of ballyhoo.
You're losing. Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
It's like bluefish. It's like bluefish with a menhaden.
Oh, man.
Yeah, they
hit the back, and so you got to feed them a long time. But anyway, so we're finding these temperature changes. That's when you mentioned this service, and that you have, and you said you have a temperature, and then the second thing you said is, what's the other thing you said?
The chlorophyll shot.
Chlorophyll, that tells you how clear that water is. And so for marlin fishing, it really is better, in my opinion, to fish in that clear water.
Got it.
However, the Carolina guys were coming up some to around the 200 line for a couple weeks ago, and if you looked online, it wasn't clear down there. It was clear at the canyon. But so guys, we're still running the canyon, some other places north, but they were still catching some fish down there, and sometimes having some good numbers. So you don't have to be in that clear water. I just think if you're you got to pick a spot somewhere in the ocean. I'm usually going, but where that clear water is.
Got it.
And then we're trolling, and then we're watching those baits all the time. If you're just not ever watching them, then you're going to have to, because what's cool thing about marlin fishing is all of a sudden you're watching that bait, and all of a sudden this baseball bat sticks up behind it. Or you look at it and the fish it'll get like a neon light. Here, we call it lit up. And his fins get fluorescent, his body, they can be dark, but when they get lit up, they're excited because they want to eat.
Yeah.
And so when they're lit up, like for instance, they may hit your teaser first. They start hitting your teaser, pull your teaser up and get another bait to it. So let's say where my teaser is, I'll grab it with my hands and start pulling it up. And then the mate will grab the flat line, which is closer, and drop it back a little bit and try to get over to that fish.
Got it.
So, and the reason is that those fish like to, put it in their mouth, and their mouth is all bony. And so in the old ways, when you have a J hook, you're hoping you get it hooked through that bone.
Got it.
If you don't, then that's why they're jumping. They're trying to get off.
Right.
And that's why you hear people saying, and even if you can do everything right and they still come off. So don't think, oh man, I'm bad, he's good. No, you can do everything, textbook, so to speak. And that's the other thing. There's really no textbook. My mate's really good at feeling it. Ideally, if you can feel the line, that's why we put it in free spool with it. You want a reel that free spool is really easy. So a 50 International they're going to feel that feeding. It's not going to go out very good. You want that fish, to float down like it's dead.
Got it.
Because they've done lots of studies down in Florida on sailfish, and what the sailfish will do is they will go and they get all these bait, and they circle the bait, and then they run through the middle of it with their bill, and they whack all these bait, and they whack it with their bill, and it stuns them, and they start floating down, and then they run down there and pick up all the ones that are stunned.
Got it.
And so what they're coming up with their bills are coming up and whacking it to stun it. So once he whacks it, you drop it in free spool. Now it's floating down. Then you can feel him pick it up and it start to zip out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a cool feeling when you feel it zip out. Then you got to feel for how long do I let him, because you want him to swallow it. So then it comes back out with a circle hook. So I'm sorry I'm going so fast. So what you do, so once you drop it back on the circle hook, once you feel like, okay, he's got it, you gradually put the drag up to strike, and you put the rod tip to the water, point it to the water. Do not you can reel in the slack, but I wouldn't. He will get the slack out. You do not pull back with all your might to set a hook, because a circle hook slides up and finds the corner of their mouth and goes in the corner of their mouth. If you pull it back real fast, which I had a customer do the other day, so it happens, then it pulls it right out of his mouth. Or pulls it right out of his stomach without having a chance to lock into the corner.
Right.
Hey, I've even had a mate one year do that. I think I shared the story on a cobia that he pulled back, and I thought that was kind of odd. And he came up and he said, "Oh my gosh, I screwed up. I had an eel on a circle hook, and I thought it was a J hook, and I pulled back and I pulled it right out of the cobia's mouth." So hey, it happens to the best of them. So don't worry. That's hopefully you get other shots.
That's such a good point, because recently, we were fishing on that big boat, and when you switch between hooks, so like for you guys having, some of your leaders with J hooks and some with circle hooks, like you really got to stay mentally sharp to remember which reel you're on and how you're going to operate. And I'm also curious too. So I see that, you guys caught several white marlin, which, are on those 50 wides that you were talking about, the squalls with the 80-pound leader, and then the fluorocarbon tip to the hook. But I see this big blue marlin on the deck of your boat, which I know is unusual. So talk me through that. So obviously you typically release billfish.
Yes, we do. And unfortunately, I don't know exactly how it got wrapped up. And actually, if somebody sees the picture, you'll see the lines on his tail, almost on his body. You see this big, different coloration. And what happened, unfortunately, is a fish, they're so fast. Mm-hmm. And this was actually on the bigger rod. So you would think, okay, we got 50-pound, here you go. And the blue marlin was about 300 pounds, but still 300 pounds on 80-pound line. And I still got a light leader, at fluorocarbon leader. You can't put tons of heat on it, but I think I had 14, 15 pounds of drag. But anyway, we did not see the fish jump. It was kind of some big seas there, so he could have jumped behind a sea that we didn't see, or we're trying to get everything else in. But he ran so fast several times, and I use backing on my reels. So I load my 50s with 80-pound. And it's like a braid type of braid. I think it's I can't think of the name of that, Jimmy Brown or something like that. But and then I have top shots of 200 yards. So therefore, I can put more line on it, because that Power Pro, if anybody's used it before, it's a lot thinner. Yeah. So I can put a lot of line on there in case I get a big blue marlin. But anyway, so this one ran out, about 150 yards, and we're fighting it back. And then it ran out another. We were getting it back, and then it ran out another 150 yards. And because we don't know whether it's a marlin or not, it's not jumping. If it jumps and stays up top, well, then you can back the boat generally great, to it. But this thing kept running. We didn't know if we had a big tuna, a big eye, or what it was. Because we're in the deep, we didn't see it hit. And so we're fighting it for about an hour. The guy in the chair was doing a great job, but he's getting water. His friends are giving him some water and encouragement, because it's tough. And then all of a sudden it starts going and more, and now we can't stop it. It's going. I'm trying to back up going. And it took out about 150 yards of my backing. So now I'm out 200 plus 150. I'm out 350 yards.
Holy smokes.
And then for another hour, I am going, getting 10, 15 feet, losing 10 or 15 feet. I don't know this, but I think what happened was the fish running away from us somehow got wrapped with a tail, and I'm pulling him backwards. He can't move his gills. And so he died.
Oh no.
And so without us knowing it, he's dead out there, and I'm fighting him backwards, pulling him backwards. And so, because he can't move his gills, because he's running straight away from me, I guess.
Right.
And got tangled a little bit in the line. And so eventually, after another hour, we said, look, we got to get this fish. And I'm feeling bad. I want to catch more fish. I mean, I want to catch this one.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm thinking everybody else is just some tuna bites going on and some dolphin bites. And I'm fighting one big monster fish. But at the end of the day, I got 6 guys, and one guy's having a good time. The other 5 are
just bored.
Yeah. Well, I'm not bored. They're having a good time too, but still, it's not the same. So
right.
I tell the mate, we pushed the drag up past the strike button a little bit more, and we told the guy, this is what you're going to need to do. You need to pull back gently, and I always tell people when they're pulling big fish, you go back gently, and you reel as you're coming down gently. Mm-hmm. If you pull up real fast, all you're going to do if you watch your reel is you're just going to pull the drag out.
Got it.
So you got to turn that fish, or in our case, we've got to pull that fish up a little bit, and then you got to reel gently as you go down.
Got it.
So for another hour,
keep that line on the reel.
That you got to keep that line. But one guy was trying to help him by putting his hand on it, on the reel, and I'm like, no, on the line, on spool. If that extra little bit of drag, because that happened to me a couple weeks ago. I had a youngster stick his thumb on there, if you remember that story, and it breaks the line or pulls the hook. I mean, the drags are set for a reason. When somebody's running out for a charter guy, our biggest problem is somebody says, hey, I don't want the line to go, and they try to jam the drag up, or they try to hold the spool down. There's a reason you have 600 yards of line on there.
Right.
It's a drag system, it's just not roping them in. It's not a hook on a rope, and but freshwater fishermen can get away with it because they're fighting, 2, 3, 4, maybe an 8-pound fish on 25-pound pan fine. I mean, I'm fighting a 300-pound fish on 60-pound fluorocarbon.
Yeah, big disadvantage.
And so anyway, for over another hour, the guy pulled it up gradually, went down gradually, and taken some water over the back, because I'm trying to back down a little bit, but it was really rough. But I can't back down if I can't get an angle. Like if it's straight down, I can't keep backing down because the fish was straight down.
Right.
So it was over 3 hours. We pulled him up. We saw it. It was huge, huge fish. For blue marlin, that's not a huge blue marlin. Mm-hmm. But it did die. And so therefore, we got it. We brought it in the boat, and the guys took a lot of pictures and all that kind of stuff, because we measure it and stuff too. It's got to be a certain length in order for you to keep it.
Yep.
Dead or not, it's got to be a certain length. We have a measuring, tape naturally for all that stuff. So, but a fish of a lifetime. This guy is retired. Mm-hmm. He's been fishing for 40 years. He's caught white marlin. He's caught sailfish. Never caught a blue marlin. So he was really thrilled, and he did a great job, because you're sitting in a chair pulling
for 3 hours.
Especially at last hour, you're pulling about 10 feet, 6 feet at a time. 350 yards, and then we started fishing. But our day, the time we got it in the boat, everything else, it's 4 hours. You're fishing about 6.5. Yeah, we fished about 45 minutes before that, and had a couple of tuna. So we had a couple dolphin bites, and we got a couple dolphin, and we did get some blackfin. They're pretty small. We got a couple blackfin bites, and then it was time to go, unfortunately. So awesome day, but
sorry, just looking at this fish on the deck of your boat. I mean, me personally, I would take the entire day catching nothing but that to get a chance to be up close and personal with a blue marlin.
Absolutely.
Size. I mean, it's remarkable. It's such a remarkable fish.
Yeah.
They look like fighter jets the way that they're built, and you were talking earlier.
Oh yeah, look at the size of their tail if you saw the picture. And their tails are
massive.
And that's a small one, but you see they're huge. That's why they're so fast.
It is. And
they really are fast.
There's that video of a group of blue marlins hunting, and how they signal to one another by lighting up, when they're ready to eat and whatnot, and I even saw a video the other day of a blue marlin near a big shark, and you could see where the whole body of the marlin is dark black, but its pec fins and its tail is just bright blue, almost to highlight like, hey, I'll mess you up if you come near me, so just to get to see that animal up close and personal is just remarkable. And then I'm curious, when you harvest a blue marlin, how difficult is a fish like that to clean?
It takes time, but it's not that you flay it.
Okay.
So, you're not going through his bone.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and if somebody hasn't had that before, they're actually pretty, I've only had it smoked.
Okay.
Because we had one captain for years that would always smoke his first blue marlin and would take it, I think, to the smokehouse, I think right there in Virginia Beach, where
Mm-hmm.
I think they take half your fish and then, they'll smoke it for you. Used to, they smoke it to you for nothing, but they take half your fish, so
There's
they
a
can sell it, I
tax.
guess. But yeah, there's a tax, but it's really good. And I've had smoked, and I've also had a dip called white marlin pate before,
Ooh.
and that's very good too.
Mm.
So it really, I'm sure it's how it's cooked. It's good. It's just kind of looked frowned upon in a way. So most people, that's probably 99% of them are released. But if one dies, whether it's a white marlin or a blue marlin, we're certainly going to bring it in if we can. If we're
Mm-hmm.
legally able to bring it in, we're going to try to bring it in. And, getting it through the door, getting it, that took a lot of time too. You got to open your tuna door. There's waves coming in your boat.
Right.
That's when you realize, okay, you got all your boat stuff sealed, right? Because, big old waves coming in there right in through your tuna door
Could be dangerous.
on a rough day. It could be dangerous if your boat's, an outboard with an engine box or something.
Right.
You gotta still be conscious if you're the captain to make sure that your boat's safe. I mean, you've probably seen some videos where, well, I've seen a small boat sink where he's
Mm-hmm.
trying to pull a boat in and it goes over the corner and he's over the fish. You just got to be careful when you're dealing with a really big fish,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's a tuna, because bluefin tunas might be come up here.
Yep.
And so you just got to be careful if you're in a 25-foot boat that you don't put your boat in a situation where, you're pulling it through where the engine is, and next thing you know, there's water flying in there, and and then it goes down into their cabin or something. Like in my case, my cockpit's very well sealed. It did put a couple feet of water in my live well, but I could pump that out.
Right. And I see some guys on
so,
the deck with regular tennis shoes on instead of boots. They're probably like, man, we weren't
oh,
anticipating getting our
everybody was
feet wet.
wet.
That's great.
Yeah,
And you can
they
even
all had
see,
to help.
yeah, you could see the
Yep.
tail of the blue marlin is kind of broken on the one side where I guess it was even too big to come through the door.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
Goodness
Yep,
gracious.
absolutely.
What a fish
So
of a lifetime.
It's all the way to the back, and as you saw a picture, all the way to the front, and I got my top hat's 15 feet, so, now we use what we call as a noodle, the swimming noodles. If you saw that picture, where when we're sword fishing, we do that too. We're put a noodle over their sword. So therefore it's not hurting, if somebody bumps into it, those bills are very, very rough because they're meant to hit things and stun them or kill them. So if you brush up against a bill, you're liable to rip your skin off your hand or arm or leg or something. So we use a pool noodle. They got like a hole in the middle. A lot of them don't look for the solid ones. Look for the ones that are in a hole in the middle. And you just, you can cut one side so it kind of can expand a little bit, and you just slide it right over his bill. And that way he won't hit you.
All right.
Yeah,
What will they think
it
up
won't,
next?
it won't.
That's great. Whether it's for your kiddie pool out back or for a swordfish, 100 miles offshore, pool noodles.
Yep.
That's amazing.
Yep. Pull your noodle out for storage. And as you mentioned, the tuna, one of our trips, we got hit by 3 tunas. We got one of them. One of them blew up another one. We saw a big splash, and the water was so clear because I was fishing that real clear water that you could actually see the tuna going after your bait, which is really cool. Usually you just see a big splash or a flash, but the water was so clear fishing in that water that you could see the tuna coming after your bait. And unfortunately, the tuna that was swimming to my short rigger, the guy was so excited sitting on the side of my boat that he started screaming at the top of his lungs and beating his hand on the boat. Well, the fish didn't go the fish turned off and left.
Oh, no.
So I don't know that they can hear that stuff through the water.
Uh-huh.
But, my recollection is, because I've been known to scream a lot, that I probably need to not scream as loud when I see a fish.
Right.
They may be able to hear something in the water there.
Yeah, a little any sort of, unique. I mean, if you've ever been underwater when a boat goes by, or even just been underwater in a swimming pool and heard a a coin drop to the bottom or whatnot. I mean, sound is amplified remarkably
Right.
underwater or even across the
Yes, it
surface of
is.
water. So definitely a good tip there. I mean, there's so much activity going on right now. It's exciting to hear. Folks that are listening are going, "Oh my gosh, it's the middle of October. We got some good weather ahead of us. I need to get out into the blue water and go after some of these species, whether it's going to be the mahi on the weed lines or maybe a lucky tuna bite or some of these white marlin, blue marlin." What's coming up for Top Notch, and how do folks get in touch with you to get booked on one of these trips?
Well, I certainly appreciate that. They can go to my website and take a look at some of the things that we've done there, which is fishtopnotch.com.
Okay.
Or they can give me a call on my cell number, and I'll be very honest with them with weather. And we tracking the weather. I track the weather every morning with two different sites. And you may not get out, but you're right. The fishing, the tuna is going to get better. I mean, they're still catching tuna and dolphin at Ocean City and above us.
Okay.
So those fish
they're
are going to
coming.
slide back down. So they're still coming. And we have the ability to go south. Some of the fish that the Carolina guys are catching, they were fishing with us the other day. So we're going south, and they're coming up north. So there's still a lot of good fishing. It's just tough to get out there with the weather.
Well, Captain Russ, I appreciate you so much with all of the insights and great stories. Folks that are listening, definitely go check out the website or give them a call and get booked. Thanks for jumping on again, Captain.
No problem. Anytime.
I
Appreciate it. Tight lines.
Yes, sir. Y'all stick around for a word from our sponsors, and we'll be right back with you soon. Hilton's Offshore Charts. The days of heading out and blindly looking for good fishing areas are pretty much over. Don't waste time and money on fuel searching for fish. You need the most recent, highest resolution images to not only know where to go, but where not to go. The knowledge provided by today's technology is critical when planning an offshore fishing trip. So make the choice that professional captains all over the East Coast make and choose Hilton's Real-Time Navigator. The easy-to-use interface and excellent customer service will have you on the fish every time you go. Check them out at hiltonsoffshore.com. That's hiltonsoffshore.com. All right, guys, before we jump into the next report, I'm excited to bring on a new contributor to the show. If you've been in the fishing industry or been around, you're going to know this name. He's been doing it for over 15 years now. Robbie Bryan with Reel Release. Welcome to the show, man. How you doing tonight?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing good, man. We talked a couple weeks ago to Captain Andy Kim with Sashimi, and he gave us a little bit of insights into kind of the, tandem thing that you guys are going to be doing going into these, the fall season. You've got that new boat, the Outlier, that's, equipped perfectly for some of those, colder conditions and getting offshore a little bit more comfortably. But you guys have been doing some cool trips, around near shore, inshore recently. So, before we dive into some fishing activity, tell us a little bit about the boat and about Reel Release Sport Fishing.
Yeah. So I think it's right now at like 2.5 years, I purchased this 30-foot privateer. Been doing charters on that. And before, I've got a 26-foot center console, and we're doing, inshore trips on that. And we got a lot of people interested in doing wreck fishing trips, and you just had to like really pick your days on that boat. So I wanted to upgrade. And so now we got this new boat, completely rebuilt it this winter, and trying to get it as best that we can, to accommodate everybody and make sure everyone's super comfortable, nice, dry, and warm. And, a lot of hard work. It's paid off, and it's a super, super awesome boat, and probably you couldn't pick a better boat for charter fishing inside the bay and inshore on the wrecks and everything like that.
Yeah, it's a beautiful machine, and you guys did a really nice job with that custom tower too. Obviously, we're kind of out of that sight fishing territory, being that it's middle October now. But for those that are already thinking about your bookings for 2025, there's really not a better option, than hopping on board. And how high off the water are you guys now in that new tower with that gap tower? How high up are you?
I want to say from the water, it's right at 17 foot.
Wow,
that we're up.
So you've got a big advantage there, especially on those cloudy days. But in terms of some recent trips, I'm taking a look at your Facebook page here. I see some of those giant bull red drums and even a couple of flounder mixed in. What have you guys been chasing lately and seeing on your trips?
Yeah, so like right now, and previous trips before, pretty much all of October is really, really fantastic red drum fishing around the islands for the big bulls. Earlier in the October into September, we had a lot of puppy drum too around the islands. We've caught a couple black drum, like the good eater size. They're like 20, 30 pounds. We had a couple of those, and we'll have some like giant bluefish mixed in too as well. So it's always something going on. That's why I really love this time of year, because it's always some action. I'm downstairs. I'm able to hang out with everybody more and more interactive and more hands-on. You're bottom fishing, you get up, all 4 rods go off at once, triples, doubles, nonstop action. So it really makes the trip fly by and everyone enjoys it.
Yeah, I saw a picture from a recent trip where you guys were, slow pitch jigging and you hooked into that 53-inch Kobe. I mean, what did you think before you saw it, what did you think you had when you got hit?
Yeah, so we were fishing one of the wrecks that I got offshore, and everyone was just bailing the sea bass, and we had like a bunch of little amberjacks underneath the boat actually, and I was like, well, I'm gonna see if there's a bigger one down there, So I dropped down the vertical jig with the tranks and did like I was dropping it down, and then I had to help the guy next to me get his stringer of sea bass into the boat. The jig's just laying on the bottom, so I grabbed it, did 1 jig, 2 jigs, talked to Garrett. He was with me that day. And then all of a sudden I just felt a thump, and I set the hook, and then it was like, didn't move. And I'm like, oh God, what do I have?
Snag.
And then it just peeled off line, and we were all like trying to take guesses of what it is. Oh, it's an amberjack. Oh, it's a shark. Oh, who knows what it's going to be. This is crazy. And then it started acting funny. And it was funny because we had walked around the bow. It took me to the bow and walked me around the boat 3 times while we were fighting, because I only had 25-pound leader.
Oh, wow.
And I was up on the bow, like trying to get it around the trolling motor. And I was talking to Garrett. I was like, this thing's acting like a cobia, because like when you're chumming for cobias, they want to, usually the bigger ones will shoot up towards the surface or scope out, and then they'll run like to the bow. They'll always go like up current.
Mm-hmm.
And this thing's kind of fighting like a cobia. And he's like, well, what happens if it could be one? I was like, dude, there's no shot. We're going to have a cobia, 35 miles offshore and 115 foot of water in October. And then all of a sudden we just see this brown figure come up, and we're like, holy smokes. So then we land it, and, we're all high-fiving. And then all of a sudden I'm like, go to release the fish. And usually I like hang them on the side of the boat and try to like, revive them. And as soon as I put it in the water, the thing kicked off, and I was like, huh, wow, that was cool. So we're all watching it swim off behind the boat, and then all of a sudden this great white comes from underneath the boat, and like they pass each other, and the cobia, swims off as fast as it can, and you see this great white just swirl and take off after it.
Oh my gosh. So, that's
pretty crazy. I've never seen anything like that, and I'm very glad that I was not laying on the side of the boat when I was reviving that fish.
No kidding, because I mean, you think about that fish, or I mean that great white was probably nearby, kind of scoping out the disturbance, and then like you're saying, you could have had your hand in the water with some fish grips and been really focused on that cobia, and then out of nowhere, that shark could have come. That's a crazy series of events to all happen at one time.
Yeah, it literally came dead center of the transom, like came directly from underneath the boat, and it was funny because while we were fighting that fish, Garrett was like, and everyone else on the boat was there. They were all like, dude, that's a giant shark. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, like before I took a video of like a 12-foot like hammerhead just cruising on the surface. I was like, oh, it could be just like, a brown shark or a dusky that they see that's like 6 foot. Like most people think like 6 foot, that's a big shark.
Right.
And then I'm like, I didn't think anything of it. I'm like, okay. And then they're like, that's a great white. I'm like, okay, Garrett, I'm sure. And then, yeah, it was definitely a great white. It was definitely a great white.
They are out there. I have personally seen a really large one as well. And I mean, I didn't see it show any kind of energy or excitement. So the fact that it took off after that cobia, I mean, that had to have been cool just to see an animal that size, step on the gas and go.
Well, I mean, that's the 6th one that I've seen this year off the coast. I was actually fishing for reds too. So this brings up with the reds. We're on a school of giant redfish off Sandbridge, and we're all hooked up fighting these fish. And then next thing you know, my buddy Chris, he runs the game on out of Rudy Inlet, and he's on the other side of the school. And he gets on the radio. He's like, Robbie, look at the bow. Look off the bow. What in the world? And he's just blowing up giant boils in this school of red drum. And then there's just blood everywhere. Oh. And I'm like, what the hell is that? What is going on? and it was like 4 juvenile like great whites that are like, I don't know, 10 foot, and they were launching these reds into the air like seals, like what you see on Shark Week.
Oh my gosh.
It was insane. We watched that for like an hour going on. It was just the craziest thing in the world. And we're only like a mile and a half off Sandbridge too. We're like right by that dump site buoy off Sandbridge Pier. And we're like, holy smokes. It was 4 of them, and they had the drum all balled up, and then one would blitz through and jump and air out.
Oh
It was
my
insane.
goodness. I guess we should have put a disclaimer before this segment that if anyone's like afraid to like swim at the beach, they probably shouldn't listen to this show this week. But I mean, that's incredible to hear. And I know that there's, one of the captains, I think he goes by Bubba, that runs the Bay Eagle. They long line for sharks, and he's reported just an unusual amount of juvenile greats in the area this year. And again, we don't know what all the reasons for it are, but you can kind of assimilate a few things like, well, we've had a lot of bait, seasons change, the Gulf Stream pushes some warmer water in, or who knows what. But that is kind of cool to hear that that's happening. Like a cobia 35 miles offshore, and then a couple of great whites a mile and a half offshore. You would think it would be the other way around.
Well, that's what's crazy. The first time I saw the great white this year was around there at the light tower, and we were spade fishing, and it came up out of nowhere. I was up in the tower, like backing down so that people could cast. I'm like, holy smokes. There's one I looked up, like I was like, oh, I bet you it probably pinged on like on that O-search thing. And it did. It was like the 13 or 14 foot like female or something that they had. And while I looked at that, there was like 5 other great whites off the coast at that time that they had tagged as well. And then there was I think it was a 13-foot tiger shark that was inside the sound all the way like 500 yards off Knott's Island.
Wow. Inside. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's one of the
You
cool
never
things.
know.
Yeah, that's the cool thing about, the new technology and the tagging programs. We're getting to learn so much that we never knew in the past. But one thing I want to key in on too, you guys obviously do a lot of rec trips, and you talked about this new boat that you've got that is comfortable and warm. But one of the big benefits, and I can attest to this because I don't have one, and it makes it much more difficult. You guys have a big trolling motor up on the front of that thing. So when you get out on those wrecks, how does that help in terms of, getting located and kind of staying in the bite?
So it was, we tried wreck fishing on that boat last year, and we did great. We still caught fish, but it wasn't the same as like fishing a center console where you're able to like move and maneuver the boat a little bit easier. And we really noticed it on like windier days. If the tide's going one way and the wind's going the other, the boat would swing and we wouldn't be able to drift as much. So we ended up getting that spot lock on that trolling motor, and we can sit right on top of that wreck and just pick them clean. It's the game changer, 100% a game changer. I wouldn't want a boat without one of those Minn Kota trolling motors right now. That's pretty much what you have to go wreck fishing.
Yeah,
to be like, to have it like that much of a game changer where everyone can fish. Because normally I like to try to fish or like help out and cut bait. You got 5 guys on the back of the boat bringing in fish, and you're trying to measure them, and you're trying to bait everyone's hooks again. It's definitely difficult for the mates. So like I try to help out as much as I can. And then, if it's really good, I always like to drop a line down and just, catch a couple fish too. But
or
it was easier to do in a center console, but now it's, or a giant cobia.
Right.
Without that trolling motor, I probably would have never caught that cobia, because I was able to like spot lock on one of these tiny pieces that I've got that's probably the size of my boat. It's probably only 20 foot. And it's to be able to fish like the smaller structures that I have with that, it's night and day difference.
And would you say, a challenge often, fishing on the wrecks, or especially the nearshore wrecks, that they have lots of snag potential when you're fishing on a drift, versus fishing on spot lock? Do you find that you guys lose a lot less lures that way too?
So the reason why I like fishing the wrecks versus like flounder fishing or anything like inside the bay, there's so many snags and the current's so strong inside the bay. You don't really lose too much gear while you're on those wrecks. You're going to lose like, I would say more, maybe like 12 rigs, 15 rigs throughout the day, with 5 guys fishing. Sometimes it's more, it all depends on like, how experienced the anglers are.
Right.
But we don't ever, now it's like you don't ever lose any rigs at all. And that makes a huge difference. And I know my mates love it because it's less tying and less work for them to have to do.
Right.
more fishing time for everybody else too that's on the boat, so
Yeah.
it helps out everybody.
Win-win, because you're able to kind of stay straight up and down instead of dragging things at an angle through the water. And just all the more reasons, in addition to the fact that you guys are sponsored with Shimano. So if you get out there on your boat, you're going to get to experience some great modern gear, and under the guidance of yourself and your expert mates, to make sure that folks are having a good time. They're catching fish, they're learning along the way. So folks that are tuning in and listening, hearing you for the first time on this show, and are wanting to get out and experience, that kind of dynamic duo of you and Captain Andy, whether it's, inside of the river for, some puppy drum, or out in the bay for some reds around the islands, or getting off to those nearshore wrecks. What's going to be the best way for folks to contact you and get booked for an upcoming trip?
Yeah, the best way is you reach out to me via my website. There's a link in there where you can send me an email. Or just reach out by, texting me, calling, leave a voicemail if I don't answer, please. I know I've got a lot of people that sometimes don't do that, but it's 757-705-1366 is my number. And that is the best way to reach out to me on that. I know a lot of people send me messages on Facebook, and it just gets jammed up, with a lot of notifications and everything, and I end up missing those. So it's either, the main thing is going to be the website, or just straight call me or text me.
Perfect. Yep.
And that's the other thing too that's going on right now is like the inshore fishing for the puppy drum. I mean, it's off the charts good. I fished yesterday. Yesterday we had a bunch of puppy drum. I think we had like 15. And then today I did that this morning, and I think we had like 2 bluefish that were almost citation today. They were like 9.5 pounds.
Whoa.
And then we had, I think like 8 keeper drum. Then we had 2 31-inch reds, and I think yesterday we had one that was over slot, and then the day before that we had one that was like 32 inches, a 30-incher, and a 29. So I mean, there's giant reds inside Lynnhaven right now.
That is big.
And anytime right now, like with this cold front that we just had, it's going to be shoving these trout in, and then the speckled trout fishing is going to take off right now. Now through like mid-November is going to be great. And then honestly, the next thing that's going to be happening in the bay, drum are starting to move out right now around the islands. There's still a few, but really it's going to heat up for the togs all along the bridge tunnel, inshore wrecks and everything like that. It's going to be the main thing. And then from there on, we start rock fishing in December, and that is hopefully it'll be as good as last year. Last year was insane. And I'm really excited for this year because I'll be testing out the live scope and the trolling motor for that too. So should help out for all that stuff.
It's exciting to hear about all the different species that you guys can target there on the outlier with reel release, and having all of those critical components to the trolling motor, the live scope. So I'm excited to hear some more reports from you in the future. For those that are listening, that website's going to be realreleasesportfishingvirginiabeach.com. We'll drop it in the show notes along with that cell number. You can find them on Instagram or Facebook, Real Release Sport Fishing. Captain Robbie, thank you so much for joining us and sharing a little bit. We look forward to talking to you soon.
All right. Sounds good, buddy.
I appreciate it. All right, folks, that's going to wrap up a cool segment. Stick around for a word from our sponsors, making the show free for us each week, and we'll be right back with you soon. It's time we talked about catching some serious savings. Imagine harnessing the power of the sun to cut your energy bills and having a roof that's built to last. Convert Solar and Roofing specializes in top-notch solar installations and durable roofing solutions that stand up to the toughest elements. Their solar panels are designed to maximize efficiency, and their roofs are built with premium materials to ensure long-lasting protection. Whether you're out on the water or at home, their expert team ensures you're covered. As fellow anglers in the Lower Chesapeake Bay, the team at Convert Solar and Roofing cares about both sustainable living and sustainable fishing. So reel in those savings today and visit www.convert-solar.com or call 757-44-SOLAR. Make your energy and roof as reliable as your favorite fishing lure. Call Convert Solar and Roofing today. All right, guys, welcome back to the show. Friend of the show, Captain C.L. Marshall. I'm excited to dive into what's been going on in some of the shallower waters here in kind of the lower mid-Chesapeake Bay. Captain C.L., welcome back, man. How you doing?
Man, I'm doing great, Luke. Man, I really appreciate you having us back today. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
I was looking forward to the 3 o'clock thing. I fished this morning. We had a pretty good morning. One of the highlights of my morning was running into Captain Matt Abel here over behind Smith Island. I think we both had similar success this morning. We picked up some rockfish and a few puppy drum, and then it got a little nautical, Matt.
It was the weatherman. I wish the charter boat business was as easy as weather. Telling the weather, because we wouldn't have to catch fish or anything. It's
it's the only job you can get wrong a whole bunch and not lose your job. And Captain Matt, you guys, I'm talking to you right now on video. Obviously, this is audio for the podcast, but you guys are standing where right now?
So CL stopped by after I own CL Sports Center in Pocomoke, Maryland. We're a full service sporting goods store. Our passion's fishing. We do everything from Minn Kota trolling motors to any kind of rod and reel repair. If you need custom rod work, we try to bring service back to what a lot of these big companies don't offer you.
That's really cool to hear. And I understand CL's really good at breaking things. So I guess you see him on a regular basis.
So like if you have a customer that it really is great for the customer, because when they come to me and they're like, I don't want to tell Matt that I broke this, it makes them feel better because CL's already done it. There's things I haven't seen that he hasn't.
CL's a sacrificial lamb. So I love it.
The truth of the matter is, you go in a lot of stores, I think Ocean's East is a good store down your way.
Mm-hmm.
Up here, it's Seahawk. And the cool thing about Seahawk and what Matt's done here is he's got all the right stuff. If you're looking to go cobia fishing, he's got the right stuff. If you want to go speckled trout fishing, he's got the right lures. He's got the product in here. And if you want to go muskie fishing, maybe this isn't the place for you. But if you're looking for saltwater fishing,
I don't know. There was that smell that was kind of must. Yeah. Oh, that's must-see.
But if you're looking for saltwater fishing in the Chesapeake Bay, and even ocean fishing, for tunas and the like, then they got the right stuff here, and that's primarily why I deal exclusively with Seahawk.
Very cool. So Captain Matt, how long have you guys been in business there near Pocomoke Sound, and what was the inspiration to start a by the fisherman for the fisherman type of resource place?
Believe it or not, this store has been here since 1980. I've worked here since I was 13 years old. And then I graduated high school, went to college. When I got out of college, I bought it, and that was in 2001. And I've been here ever since. It's kind of neat because my grandfather had a general store in town. If you come by our place of business, everybody knows everybody. It's as close as you can get to an old time general store is that's around anymore. I mean, everybody's friends. It's like you step back in time.
I love that. That's super cool. Yeah, that's a rare treat these days, with how fast society is, to walk in a place where everyone's on first name basis, probably knows each other's kids' names, dogs' names, the name of the boat, etc. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's all about service, because I require a high level of service.
Yeah, but he has trained me in everything. I mean, there's nothing we haven't seen.
Well, that's cool too, because we were talking with Casey Davidson from Toadfish, who's one of our new sponsors, and just discussing how, like, when you bring a new product to the market, you want to test it by fire. So I assume everything that's in Seahawk, you just give it to CL to see how long it'll last, and then that's kind of your case study for the product that you guys are running through the store.
Phase one is making it out of the parking lot without it falling out of the truck. I mean, that's step one, and it's a step process.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, so you guys ran into each other on the water. So tell me a couple of fish stories. For those that are just tuning in and maybe haven't heard your voice before, CL, you run Tangier Sound Charters. You guys run that beautiful 23 Mako that you've redone from bow to stern. She's set up with a trolling motor. I mean, she can get in the skinny water, go everywhere. What have you guys been up to? What you been catching? The weather's turning. What are you targeting with these new water temperatures and change in the season?
Well, this morning I started in some real skinny water. I was fishing in about 1.5 feet of water right at sunup, and I really thought I'd have a decent topwater bite in there. But I didn't have enough. The current had just started to come in, and the water was cold. I had 59-degree water in there, and
low out tide too.
Yeah,
a lot lower tide than supposed to.
The tide was super, super low. So we fished that for about 20 minutes with no lull. So we moved on, and what I find with this cold temperature, number one, the front end of that north wind puts those fish on the move, man, especially they're on the move. One day last week we were fishing some deep water structure, and north wind probably going 10 to 15. It was a little rough, but it was probably one of the most wide open redfish bites I've ever seen. that it was so rough. The trolling motor was coming out of the water, and it was me and another boat there, VMRC guy, and we were just it was all you wanted. We were bowed up for the whole day, but that north wind's got them on the move. Right now, once we find some fish, especially redfish, once we find them, they tend to be congregated in more, in larger schools.
Mm-hmm.
With the puppy drum, one of the things that we've been successful with lately, as you know, I've been fishing these Four Horsemen popping corks and using those. But what we find is that many times when we catch one, as it comes to the boat, there'll be multiple fish that'll come as well. And just utilizing that same mahi-mahi type of mentality where you leave one in the water.
That happened just this past Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
We had Mr. Bob Wilson on the boat, and he had his older brother-in-law. And Mr. John was not a fisherman. He had a problem casting all day long, but making a lot of fish. But it wasn't coming natural to him. So, but at the last cast of the day, as the sun went down, Mr. Bob hooked a fish, and the fish was coming. He was fighting the fish in.
Mm-hmm.
Fish got close to John's line, and I said, John, I said, crank in. I said, we're going to get crossed up here. And he cranked in. It was a little slower than I thought he was going to crank in.
Right.
But anyway, we didn't get crossed up. But John hooked a fish. So it was that same thing that CL was talking about there. Man, that you talk about made an old man happy.
Yep.
I mean, he was tickled right to death.
Yeah. So what we started doing when we catch a fish, you always have one angler get his line in quick, and especially with the puppies in the shallow water, as it comes to the boat, we're shooting right behind it. As he gets closer to the boat, and oftentimes we'll find multiple hookups that way.
That's a remarkable thing, because that's the first I've ever heard of that. Obviously the mahi thing is well known. That's definitely the first I've ever heard of that with puppy drum, and a great thing to think about. Now, were you doing that in much shallower water, or was that in some deeper water?
No, that scenario that Matt was talking about and I was talking about, that was in less than 3 feet of water.
Okay, so they're very visually engaged in what's happening, and they're seeing that other fish, I guess, thinking it's eating, and then kind of firing off.
He's eating. How come I'm not eating?
Yeah.
That meant, and that type of approach. Well, like I had the guys from Summers Cove Marina the other day, and it was a tough day. And at one point in the day, we picked up that one fish. We had about 50 come with it, and we ended up banging about a dozen out of that little school.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and it happens fast. It happens furious. It's chaotic, and I love it.
That's awesome. So talk me through. So you got into 1.5 feet of water this morning. It was about 59 degrees. You weren't seeing the bite that you were expecting, and then you got into some like 3-foot water. What was the difference maker there? Was it truly just the temperature difference and that 1.5 feet more depth, or was it just finding them on the move like you were talking about?
12 miles was the difference.
Whoa!
Picked up and ran 12 miles over behind Smith Island. Which is
right next to me.
Right.
That's great. I mean, that's a heck of a move to make in the middle of the day. But again, back to like, why do we talk to you instead of somebody that's only been fishing for years? It takes a lot of confidence in experience to know that 12-mile commit is going to be worth, making the run. So you picked up 12 miles, you ran to where you expected to find some fish. You obviously found some fish. Now, did you just find puppy drum, or did you get into any other species?
Well, we found it was 4 degrees difference.
Okay.
The water temperature as we got out near the main stem of the bay. Matt, he was down below. He was fishing the rock jetty coming out behind Smith Island. I saw him there. And so I cut up this other little gut and was fishing basically a drain that the tide was coming in that was feeding this big flat. And the water was warmer in there. And we found the puppy drums using the Four Horsemen popping corks. Mm-hmm. Gulp underneath, which I was never a gulp guy, and he kind of converted me into that.
That makes a big difference on popping cork. I mean, I guess where you're fishing is so slow,
right?
That smell or flavor, I don't know. CL tastes every one that he. So
I like
he can comment on that.
So yeah, we did that, and we caught some puppy drum in there. We had some smaller ones. We did have a couple in the slot, which was good. That's always fun, and Matt had caught some rockfish along the rocks there, and he shared that with me. So when I moved out of that drain, I cut around on some of those rock pieces out there and picked around a little bit using shad wraps. The little
X-Wrap. There's a Rapala makes something called an X-Wrap. and it's called a wrap 10. And this 10 is the size, but
Okay.
it's bending, swimming plug, something very close to what a bass fisherman would have used. But it suspends. It'll dive anywhere from 2 to 4 feet, and then you can rip it, and then you can stop it, and it won't float back up like a balsa wood plug.
Stays
It'll
right
just
there.
stay right.
Okay.
Really, really cool because you can stop that over a pile of rocks or a stump,
Oh.
that, and they just can't stand it.
That's pretty funny. So you're talking about did I hear you correct? It's a suspending twitch bait. So at whatever depth you rip it down to, it'll stay there.
Yeah, and it'll suspend right in the water column. And the thing, I use it in a lot of different scenarios. If I'm around stumps, if I'm around rocks, today was rocks, and we just rip it across the rocks and let it kind of suspend right there.
That's cool. So you can, okay, yeah. So it looks very similar. Again, we're on audio only here, for our listeners, but it's like a lipped, like a stretch 25, but a very small version of that, where you would have the ability to get it down those 2 or 3 feet. The other nice thing that I think about that is it's kind of snagless in that sense too, where you're not getting caught up in that stump or caught up in those rocks, but you're still able to get that bait down in that target zone where you're presenting it, visually to the fish.
Right. And one of the things that I always like to do is take the treble hooks off and go with single hooks, because these a lot of times when you got a lot of pressure on the fish, especially at boat side, the treble hooks, in my opinion, are a little small, and the thing will come undone and it comes back at you like a ballistic missile. It's got 6 hooks on it, and so we take them off. You put on some. I like the owner 1/0 hooks. Matt likes the Eagle Claws, but that's what I like. And do you miss a few bites? Yeah, maybe, but.
Do you put singles on both sides?
I try to put singles on both of them. Most of the time, I ended up with just singles on the trail end of it.
Right.
And the other cool thing is when you catch a fish and you net it, trying to get the treble hooks out of the net. It's a pain in the ass, man.
It is, and I think that you make a great point there that I think anyone listening should kind of just like pause and consider that any bait, coming off the shelf, any artificial lure coming off the shelf, is not necessarily finished until you as the angler finish it for whatever it is you're specifically going after. So changing a hook out, maybe adding a larger swivel in there so there's more, play so the fish can shake its head without it, causing more of that hook to wallow out. There's all those little things that you guys do along the way to increase your hookup ratio and your stay on hook ratio, as it were.
Oh, yeah. And one of the things that I'm always concerned about, Luke, especially if I'm catching rockfish and redfish, is mortality rate. We're allowed 1 redfish per person in the slot in Maryland. You're allowed 3 in Virginia. And on days that we catch 20, 30, 40 of those fish, the catch and release is a big part of our day.
Yep.
And by taking the trebles off and going with a single hook, we're harming the fish less.
The quicker you can get the fish back in the water, the better.
Yeah, trebles can be really sticky to get out, especially if they've made their way down anywhere close to the gullet.
Yeah. One thing I like to do too with these shad wrap things is the split ring on the front of it. A lot of times if I've got time, I'll put a little bit bigger one on there, which will give it a little bit more range of motion.
Yep.
I'll do that on occasion.
Sometimes you can tie it with a loop knot too, and that does the same thing.
Yep.
I've heard that before too. So when you tie a loop knot, do you ever have any concern about strength of the knot, or in your opinion, does it not really matter as long as you're playing your drag right?
If you tie, there's a certain way to tie a perfection knot where you're kind of tying it backwards. The perfection knot is a fairly strong knot. That would be the same knot that you would see like on the top of a snelled hook.
Okay.
And it's not a double overhand knot or anything like that, but perfection knot seems to do a very, very good job. If you tie it in a different orientation and you kind of tie it backwards, you can make that knot really, really small. So it gives the lure free range of motion, but it's not this big gaudy loop on the front of the lure too.
Yeah, I just started using that knot recently, that reverse loop knot thing. And man, we hooked up a hammer the other day, and that was all was on my mind was
knot.
This new knot I tied. But it was funny. We were fishing over top of some submerged rocks at about 5 feet of water recently. And this guy from Ontario, he hooks up this big red. It was a 47-inch one that we released.
Wow.
Light tackle, 3/8 inch jig head. And the guy's fighting it. And and the knot came out of the water as a, the knot where I joined the braid to the 30 leader. Yeah. He goes, "What type of knot did you tie?" I said, "An FG knot." He goes, "Well, what does that stand for?" And I said, "Blank and good, I hope."
Is that this picture here? I see the gentleman in the red plaid shirt with the black beanie on with that big long red fish.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's a beautiful fish. I'm checking out your Tangier Sound Charters Facebook page. I love that you guys post after every trip, so you can get a good look at what's going on in real time. Those little micro changes, changing the hook out, increasing the size of the swivel, or tying that perfection knot with the loop to increase the play. Exploring not just a four horseman pop and cork with the gulp, but also exploring that X10 wrap. What do you call it? The wrap
10.
Wrap 10 to get those fish engaged. And again, considering the mortality as well too. That's something Captain Matt, we talk about on the show all the time. Is it's great that we get out and go fishing. We also want to really dial in on sustainable fishing practices so that we can preserve, this great fishery for generations to come. Is kind of one of our core values as a podcast. So I appreciate that you guys do that. Some of our other captains, they're really they limit the number of sheep's head that they keep and things like that, just to help contribute. We'll talk about that when we dive into our deep dive with Casey from Toadfish soon, how they give back to help replant oysters, which again are such a critical part of the ecosystem. So looking into the future, you guys have been obviously hammering the redfish. You've been doing some good on some speckled trout and some stripers. Will the addition of more cool temperatures coming change some of the species that you guys are targeting, or are you guys going to continue targeting the same and just follow them around and find where they go to?
Well, I mean, I think the rock fishing for us in the southern reaches of the bay or of the sound are going to get better as these fish move down, and then it really is the Lord looks out for us. We got something to do all the time. So, as the rock cool off, literally, the river heats up and you've got crappie and yellow perch and all kinds of things just to keep you from going crazy all winter. So there's stuff to do.
Well, last year we were real fortunate. We had what I'm going to call a world-class striped bass bite, something you guys have been missing down at the tunnel for a while.
Oh, yeah.
Just off of Hooper's Island. And there were it started about mid December and went into January, and a little bit of a run for us, about 45 minutes, maybe an hour some days to get over there. But it was all you want. Nice 20, 30, 40-inch fish all mixed together, all artificial and all catch and release.
Oh, man, that's a dream for us up here because we haven't seen that sort of thing in a long, long time. But Captain Matt and Captain CL, I think it's a real treat that we're getting to see both of you and talk to you both at the same time and learn a little bit more about, the culture that you guys have developed up there. I think those that have listened in before, CL, and heard you talk, you always say, like, the number one thing we're going to do on Tangier Sound Charters is we're going to have fun, and that starts with some great stories and the right attitude. So I love that about what you guys do.
Yeah, well, the cool thing is, up here we've got good friends like Matt and some other guys who fish a little bit, and we share information, pretty freely because we're all in this together.
Yep.
I guess fortunately in the area that we fish, very seldom do we see many other anglers. Today I saw one other guy, and he was everywhere I wanted to be.
Sounds like y'all were able to come to some sort of a peaceful resolution and share the water a little bit.
Yeah, but
I didn't have.
So for folks, Captain CL that are interested in getting aboard, Tangier Sound Charters and having some fun with you guys, what's going to be the best way for them to contact you and book a trip? And then after you share with that, again, I want to go back to Matt and ask him a question about the store. But first, for those tuning in, how are they going to contact you best?
Best way to reach me is by phone. I'm old school. We don't do any online bookings. You can reach me at 410-251-7341. And that's my personal cell phone number. Best thing to do is throw me a text because, God willing, I'm fishing. I'll fire right back to you and get back to you when I get in. We do have a Facebook page, Tangier Sound Charters. Feel free to message, comment, whatever, sign up. That's for sure. And that way you'll keep, we post every day we fish, we post. If you scroll back there, you'll see a skunk flag one day. Fortunately, it was a ways back there.
That's good to know.
It happens. We're guides, not God.
Yeah.
So
that's great. I like that. You're guides, not gods.
Yeah. I tell everybody that gets on my boat the same thing when they get on the boat. First thing I tell them is like, I can't promise you what we're going to catch today, but I can promise you that you're going to get my best effort. And at the end of the day, if I feel like, I think Matt feels the same way, if we give our best effort, you know, and we talk a lot about this business because it is a business, and we talk about it, and we've been other places, and we fished with other guys throughout the East Coast and the world, and not everybody puts the same value on the experience, the overall experience, as we do.
I've been on both sides. I've been down south and had been on really good charters, and I've been times where, you know, that person didn't, you know, you look at that person and say, well, I'm not really sure he tried his best. And that's something that we don't want to do. I mean, it's if you got a day to spend with your friends or your family and you're going fishing and and we're blessed enough that you give us the chance to help you do that, you're not going to get the most intelligent people to deal with, but we're going to try our best.
Well, before we wrap up, I want to know if folks want to come visit, you know, Seahawk Sports. I'm probably saying it wrong here. Seahawk Sports Center up there near Pocomoke, and I'm particularly interested in shopping the refurbished Captain CL selection. Is that a thing?
Oh, it's a big selection. Yeah.
What's going to be the best way for folks to contact Seahawk Sports Center?
There.
Yeah, and also Matt runs trips. Matt, how they get up with you?
Well, so a lot of our trips, so stop by the store and see us. The store number is 410-957-0198.
Okay.
And if your passion is fishing, we will do absolutely anything we can. We do run trips. I'd bow to the master here. But if you do go out with CL and you need somebody to come get you, feel free to call me.
Oh man, I love it. Well, it sounds like you guys are kind of like the dynamic duo in terms of, you know, if I wanted to go with UCL and maybe you were booked and perhaps Matt would be available or vice versa. So you guys heard the phone numbers. We'll drop them in the show notes as well as a link to Seahawk Sports Center so you guys can go get all of your gear and get ready to go have some fun. If you're going on your own boat, go by, you know, Seahawk Sports Center. If you don't have a boat and want to get out there, give these guys a call.
I do want to end with this, Luke, and this is important. This is primarily why Matt's with me today here doing the show, because, you know, there's a lot of businesses out there and there's a lot of places that you can shop online, and there's a lot of people that are vying for my money and the money of anglers, because as anglers, we tend to spend a lot of money. But you'll find no business anywhere that provides a service and actually cares about your success, that you're happy with what you get, and will go to great lengths to make sure that's true than you will at Seahawk. And I got to tell you, Matt and his staff here at Seahawk have been outstanding and been an integral part of getting Tangier Sound Charters where it is today. And for him, I'll forever be thankful.
Man, that's awesome to hear, man. Yeah, you guys bring the type of class and professionalism to the industry that, you know, we could all take a note out of y'all's page and learn a thing or two. So thanks for setting a great example.
Well, thank you. We try hard, that's for sure. But
as long as the bar is low.
Yes.
That's awesome. Well, folks, that was a treat getting to talk to Captain CL and Captain Matt, learn a little bit about what's going on inshore as well as how we can get stocked up on gear. Y'all stick around. We're going to have a word from our sponsors who are bringing this show to us free each and every week, and we'll be right back with the What Did You Learn? Did you know every 40 seconds someone has a heart attack or stroke? In that moment, every second counts and every critical decision matters. Air Medcare Network's air ambulance providers can provide life-saving care directly to those in need at a moment's notice. With 320 locations across 38 states, they're the largest air ambulance membership network. Rest assured, they've got you and your entire household covered. Membership is just $99 a year or just $79 for seniors. Visit gdo.deals/airmedcare to enroll. Sam Rust Seafood, your locally trusted source for premium wholesale seafood. Servicing customers from Hampton Roads down through the Outer Banks, Richmond, and surrounding areas, including Fredericksburg, Charlottesville, and Lynchburg, for over 80 years. Committed to the highest standards in the industry, Sam Rust distributes the best of the ocean directly to your restaurant, hotel, or grocery store on time and at a great price. Visit samrust.com to discover how quality, tradition, and sustainability come together. So don't cuss, call Sam Rust. All right, welcome to What Did You Learn? Man, going back to talking to Captain Russ, gosh, what a wealth of knowledge. But, trying to understand Loran Sea. There's so many terminologies I hear get tossed around, especially with offshore fishing, where I guess the best way to describe it would be it's almost like you need to go to a college course, it seems, to really learn all the things that you need to know. You kind of got to be a little bit of a tech head too. You got to spend some time logging into your, Hilton's real-time navigator and looking at your sea surface temperatures and your chlorophyll shot, and then, taking a look at your, 200 line or wherever it is, and really starting to understand how to get located. And, I'm kind of thinking of it like this. It's a sort of abstract way of thinking where you are, able to understand all these data points and then, really use your mind to put together the picture of where you need to be. So that was definitely a cool thing to learn talking to Captain Russ. Getting to get introduced to Captain Robbie Bryan with Real Release was really neat because he brings a wealth of knowledge. He's been fishing this area for a long, long time. He's been partnered with Oceans East and Shimano and others, and really able to get you on whatever kind of fish that you're going after. And with that new privateer and the way he's built it, you're going to be able to go out pretty much in any reasonable conditions and get on some fish. So excited to see what him and Captain Andy are doing. And then, of course, Captain CL, it was great to learn what him and Matt are doing up there near Pocomoke, there in Seahawk Sports Center. It's just great to know that there's still kind of these, pure places still around where, they exist for the community, they care about each other, and they look out for one another. And it was just a good reminder too that you can go in there and get a rod repaired or get whatever bait you need. So definitely, if you're up on the Eastern Shore or anywhere in that area, go by and see Captain Matt and get hooked up with whatever baits or lures you're going to need for what you're chasing. But it was also a good reminder too, as far as if you're fishing in the shallow waters. Something I picked up from him in the conversation was you got to be ready to move. If the temperature's not right and the water's not right, you got to be ready to commit to a move and go to where you might be able to find some fish, especially when they're on the move. So considering that we're in these transition seasons right now, those fish in those shallower waters are likely to be on the move. So to be aware of that for your next trip. So lots of good stuff to learn this week. Excited to see what we can get into this weekend. Hopefully you guys get tight on a few fish, and we'll be talking to you real soon. So that's going to wrap it up this week. Please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. And remember, to get your free AFTCO Camo Sunglasses Cleaning Cloth, just text the acronym LCBFR to 779-345-2918 to get your promo code and be added to our email list so we can send you the new show each week. You guys keep whacking them and be safe out there.